Hi, my name is Alex and this is my family culture documentary. So my family consists of English, German, and Italian. So if I were to predict my DNA test results, I would probably think I'll end up 50% English, 25% German, and 25% Italian. The culture that I relate to the most is my Italian culture because that's what I've been raised with tradition-wise. Also, of all of my relatives, my grandma is the only first-generation American from her Italian culture in their homeland. So she grew up in an Italian-speaking home, and that gives her the closest connection to one of my cultures. Another reason I relate a lot to my Italian culture is because families always come first, and our Italian culture has kind of always been a fun thing for my family to do when we get together at holidays. So I think that's another reason I relate to it the most, because it's kept us close and together over the years.
We are from the town of Giovinazzo, which is by Malafetto, which is by Bari, which is on the heel of the boot along the Adriatic. So Pop came to the U.S. through Ellis Island in 1912, and Nanny came through Ellis Island in 1920, and she actually came by herself and met Pop here.
She met her brother because they wouldn't release her to an unaffiliated man. So her brother met her, but Pop was there because they were engaged.
So after they got married, Pop had a job at West Point being a tailor. So they lived in Highland Falls, which is where West Point is located.
Mother stayed in that house for the next 70 years.
What was the Italian community like there?
Well, there was a next door neighbor to Nanny and Pop who also spoke Italian. So what Nanny and the neighbor would do was they would open their kitchen windows and they'd yell Italian to each other and have conversations from their kitchen windows. So, Italians being loud. And then Nana, our grandmother, was the youngest of 4 daughters. Aunt Mary, who was the eldest daughter, was the first one to be going to school here. So she learned her English at school and then taught Nanny and Pop at home. Speaking Italian became less and less prevalent because America at that time, to be an American, you had to speak English. So Nana can understand it at times, but she can't speak it.
So then my Nana met my Popsy, who was a cadet at West Point. They got married and then they started traveling because he was in the Army. And they had my dad.
Dad, will you tell me about our family's military history?
We're aware of folks who served in the Union Army during the Civil War. Back in the home country for the Axups, which was England, we had several ship captains. We have my grandfather on my mom's side served in World War I with the U.S. Army as an Italian citizen. Have a great-grandfather on the Axup side who was a carpenter in the Army in the Boxer Rebellion. And then my grandfather and father both were at West Point and commissioned officers and gentlemen. And then aunts or uncles that served in World War II. After that, my brother was an Air Force ROTC scholar at MIT and served a 20-some year career, retiring as a colonel. Your sister participated in the junior Air Force ROTC program in high school. And so I kind of see a thread to all that.
What about you?
I was an operations analyst for the Navy and spent 3 years at sea, and 6 months of that was with Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm back in 90 and 91. And so it all trickles down.
So how has all of that influenced you when you were growing up?
Growing up, I was an Army brat, which meant we were active duty, or Popsy was, my dad was. We moved about every 2 years, living on Army bases. We had, there were some cool things as a kid about it. One was living in neat places. Both your uncle and aunt were born in Alaska as a result of that. So that was sort of an adventure as a 6-7-year-old kid. Being the new kid in school was not a big deal because every year half the kids were new in school and half the time that was you. And so dealing with new friends and new teachers and things like that was something you grew up with. When we left the Army and moved to Rock Island, I went to 3 different elementary schools in 3 years. There's certain formalities that came out of military life. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Answering the telephone, identifying who you were was something that I always liked. And so there's a certain structure to your life, a certain degree of discipline. And probably one of the most important things is when you say you're going to do something, you do it.
So, like my dad said, there were a lot of formalities that were developed from him growing up in our military culture. And a lot of those transferred over to how he raised my sister and me. Some examples of this include, like he mentioned about the answering the phone thing. So we had to say, "Accept residence, this is Alexandra Accept speaking." And it was always a little awkward, but you know, it is what it is. He also always had us write thank you notes before we could deposit or spend our money or use the gift. We also had to complete our homework before we could have any computer time. And in order to get computer time, we also had to read or exercise or do something more productive first to earn that. There was also a mentality that we had to make do with what we have. And so a story he always told us was that we couldn't waste the syrup on our plate. So that meant we couldn't just squeeze out as much as we wanted. We had to pour it in all the little holes and scrape the plate and everything to make sure that we weren't being wasteful. So all of these were really good for us because it developed a strict discipline and a good work ethic, which carried over into our schoolwork and sports. So I was not only a good student, but a good student athlete. This is something my teachers and coaches always noticed about me as well. So none of these things are gonna show up on a DNA test. This is all cultural. Okay, so after everything I just told you, let's take a look at my results. 2% Italian? Are you kidding me? Yeah. I talked extensively with my family about this because we couldn't believe it. And the conclusion we kind of came to was that there's a lot of surrounding areas around Italy that I have results in. So we think that maybe if you combine all of those together, it would add up to about what we think. But that makes sense because there's the Adriatic waters around it. And so if family came from these other areas into Italy, that would make sense that they would start off as one thing, have DNA in those areas, and then be Italian for what we know. So we actually think that our grandma should do a DNA test so we can see if she actually comes out 100% Italian, or so to speak, because that's what she should be. So then looking at some of the other results, the 60% English makes sense because both of my grandpas have English descent, and then the 7% German makes sense because my mom's side of the family is German. The 7% Ireland, Scotland was surprising. I've only been to Ireland once now, so I don't know why I have all this Irish DNA.
What I learned most from this project is that DNA is not what defines us. It is our traditions and how we are raised that does. Whether this test was right or not, I know that I am strongly rooted in my Italian heritage, and that's really all that matters. Our traditions of making pizza, pasta, meatballs, turon, pizzelles, and cannolis trump anything a test could show. I am so proud of my family for where we come from and how we celebrate it. Grazie per averto guardato.